up, everybody? Welcome back to the Plastic Underground. Recently, Will and we did like this little skit, this little video for our Nerd Hole podcast. We recorded a video where we reviewed the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie, and we had more fun making the skits and stuff than watching the movie. So I wanted to show you guys like how I made the stuff for the video so you can make your own if you want to make a hat and wear it to the Mario movie next month. I made these Mario hat, and I made, Will has one, it's green obviously for Luigi, and custom made it with like the C for Caleb, and I did the W for Will. These pattern is from Kamui Cosplays. She made these really cool patterns for like a bunch of different hats, and so she's got this she calls it a plumber hat because Mario's trademarked. But yeah, so it's a pretty fun little build. This is 6mm foam, and I made two of these pretty quick. And the other thing I made to go along with them is little mustaches. So this is also 6mm foam, and yeah, kind of came out pretty cool. There's a bunch of ways to like get this to like just stick to you. These are just kind of, it's old, so it's worn out. But the other thing you can do too, that's pretty cheap, is like I went to Harbor Freight and I bought these like work gloves. So these are just like white work gloves. Comes in a pack of like 20 for like $6. And so I bought those. Then I just went to the mall and I bought two of these like polos for me and Will. I bought a red one and a green one, obviously. And these were like 20 bucks a piece, you know, so it's not crazy. So you buy yourself a red polo, you make a hat and a mustache, and buy a pair of gloves, and you got a cheap Mario costume. So that's it. I just want to show you guys how I made it, the process, painting, you know, all that stuff. So hope you liked the video, and I hope you enjoy the new Mario movie, and don't watch the old Mario movie.
Perfect.
Alright, so starting off this build, I am using some 6mm HD foam from SKS Props. And starting with this top piece of the hat here, this little back chunk here is cut at a 45 outward bevel just to help it shape upwards. The patterns are completely marked, everything is labeled. Kamui Cosplay did a great job making these patterns. She's got like a ton of hat patterns too. This is the specifically this one is called the plumbing hat, so it's like not really trademarked, but you kind of know what it is. So then I just kind of make my way all the way around the hat. I always get one side done before I stick the two sides together, even while like with helmets and stuff. That's kind of how I do it. So starting in the front here, these two pieces get glued together, and the bottom edges of these pieces have a outward 45 cut on them, so the lip of the hat, like the brim of the hat, sits flush against it when you glue it together. As always, I'm using contact cement. I specifically use the Wellwood brand contact cement, the red label can. I buy that at like Lowe's or Walmart, and you can buy big cans or little cans. And you brush it on both sides, let it dry, and then you stick your piece together, and it bonds on contact. That's the whole point, and it works very well for foam and a lot of other things too. I've used it for a lot of other things, like leather and shoe repair and all that kind of stuff. So now that one side is done,
I can go through here and put the top of the hat on. You can't really see because I have it like marked and labeled with like a fine tip pen. But I am lining up these registrations, and the biggest thing really is just to make sure that the ends are hitting the very middle of the seam on the top of the hat. So with that done, now I can go through with the other half, and I always have my head in the way, it seems like. Whenever I'm looking, like doing something very like precise, I always have to like look at it closely, and I always forget that the camera is right above me. So that being said, it's pretty much the same as the other side. It's not really much different. I tack the corners together first and then work my way down the seam, and I do the front and the back, and then I kind of go back through here as you see, and I glue the top of the hat to the side. That way when you're gluing things, you're not trying to go from like a bigger spot and then trying to glue in a tiny little corner, and you have a better chance of like everything touching where you don't want it to glue, and it's a little bit more frustrating. So then the brim of the hat gets glued on center. The center is marked on both, obviously. So I just stick the center in place first, and I just work my way around the hat. So that is it. The hat is all glued together. So I take the two pattern pieces here. It's the one pattern piece obviously flipped over to make right and left. It's the two in the very front of the hat. So I just kind of trace those, get that curve marked and traced on this paper. I use this tape roll and draw out a circle. And then I cut out a separate circle. The same, I traced that tape roll, I cut that circle out, and then I fold it in half. So I specifically know the center part of that circle. And then I draw on half of my letter. So I do an M here just to show you guys how to do like an official Mario M. So for what we were filming, Will and I, we did a W and a C, obviously for Caleb and Will. But you can do like your name, your initial, or you can just do this M and make a Mario hat or a Luigi hat or a Waluigi hat. It's kind of, it's kind of fun to like make it personalized. So I cut out the one side, flip it over and trace it. And that gives me a perfect letter M on both sides. Then I just cut that curve out. And then you can see that is the pattern for the letter. So here I am. This is going to be Will's hat. So there's the W. So I kind of fold that brim out of the way first, and it's the same shape, it's just that it's all glued together, so it's kind of like smushed. So I just try to like fold that brim out of the way and then tack these end pieces down here flat against the brim. And then what I do, so I don't stretch the letter, is I start working my way up. Just really slow tacking things in place. I'm not like really pushing hard. I'm just making sure it kind of lays how it wants to. You can see like where I marked the circle and put glue. It's not going to necessarily be like 100% where you marked it, just because now you're taking a flat shape and curving it against this curve. So I'm just pushing it, making sure that the letter stays even all the way around, so it's not like stretched, and just kind of sticking the foam where it wants to go, not really trying to force it into shape. And then I just go back through and push it all together. And then that is it. That's the letter piece on the front. Now, like always with foam, I guess not always. Sometimes I use glue. Sometimes I use Mod Podge for sealing. But, so with this, I'm just using some Plasti Dip. I do like 2 to 3 coats of Plasti Dip just to seal the foam, so that when you paint it, the paint doesn't soak into the foam. The paint bonds to the Plasti Dip, and the Plasti Dip bonds to the foam. Then I went over this with a little bit of gray primer just to make the paint easier to paint on top of. So this is my hat. This is the C hat. This will be red. And the W hat, Will's hat, will be green. So the gray primer, it's easier to paint on top of. It's easier to get a better base coat. If I had white primer, I would have used that, because these two specific colors, red and green, would have painted very easy on top of white primer. And then I wouldn't have had to paint this letter white either. That would have already been white. I would have just had to paint the inside of the letter. So you can see here, using some craft paint, some acrylic paint here. Just going over this, and I put a lot of coats on. Obviously it takes a lot of red to cover that gray, but I would have had no chance of covering that black Plasti Dip with red. I also make sure to paint the inside of the brim and the bottom, just in case you see it. And so I do a few coats of that and make sure I paint the inside letter. Since the inside letter was white, obviously that really only took me like 2 coats to make that C look good. So yeah, here's Will's hat. This I did spray white. I found a little bit of white, and I'm also using my airbrush here, and I mixed up this custom green just to spray it. I thought it would be a lot easier and faster. I was kind of on a time crunch too, which helps you kind of do things a little bit differently. And there they are. They're both painted. The Mario red and Luigi green. They came out pretty cool. I didn't seal them or anything. You could probably seal them. So now I wanted to make a couple like little cartoony mustaches for our like skit that we were doing. And it wasn't until like after we filmed everything I realized that like Luigi has a different mustache than Mario. And I made 2 Mario mustaches. And I don't know. I probably would have done that differently now, but also I kind of think it's funny that we both had like identical mustaches too. So I made this pattern up just by putting like a piece of paper up to my face and drawing like half of the pattern, like shape on it. I just transferred it over to 6mm foam, and then using the Dremel I round out these curved pieces here just to make sure they're not like have like cut lines in them from the blade, and I just kind of round over the edges just to soften it out a little bit, make sure it doesn't look like a cookie cutter. Then what I do is I have this little stone bit on my Dremel here, and I will use that, and I will carve in like texture to make it look like individual like strands of hair, just a grounded, almost like this wood grain effect. And you can see I marked with a pen kind of like the direction I wanted them to go, so it kind of looked like hair. And so yeah, I just do that. I just grind that into the foam, just adding texture. I do it on the edges too. I do it on the top of the edge and the bottom edge. Then I can give it a quick heat seal. Just sealing the foam here with some heat. It just kind of shrinks like the molecules together, makes it so there's not a bunch of like gaps. And kind of going back to what I was saying about Plasti Dip, like so for these I just used some Mod Podge for these. I just sealed the front and the sides of this with some Mod Podge. And then I'm going through with just some dark brown paint. And I'm making sure I paint all the edges first to get it in like all the cracks and seams and everything. All that texture that we ground in, make sure all the paint goes in there. That will also help later when we dry brush lighter color on top. You'll see all the darker paint in the cracks and stuff. So that base coat is done. I go in top with a little bit of lighter color. I put a bunch on my brush, and then you can see how I'm brushing it off so that I can go through and just do a little bit of dry brushing on top. This is kind of just mimicking highlights, adding some dimension to it. This is one of those things like you could totally buy like a fake mustache and just wear it. But I don't know, I think this matches like the cartoony hat a little bit more. And seems like it was quicker too. Sometimes I'd rather just make something quick than like order something and have to like wait for it. But yeah, so to put these on, at first we had some spirit gum left over from like a real mustache that Will bought a while ago, and we used that at first. Seems like the bottle might have been a little old and it didn't like stick as good as it should have. This stuff is almost like a tree sap. It's it won't hurt your skin. It's like a natural glue, and yeah, it's basically like tree sap or like maple syrup, and you just kind of put it on and let it dry, and then you stick the mustache right to it. But after that wore off, what did we do? Oh, I put like a piece of painter's tape on both of the corners of the back of the mustache, and that worked too. That like just kind of held it on for like filming purposes and that kind of stuff. So there's a couple options, and that is it. That's how I made the Mario and Luigi hat and the mustaches. So I hope you guys liked it. I hope you liked our little skit, and yeah, feel free to make your own. Go over and use Kamui Cosplays pattern. It's only like a few dollars, and it's very well worth it. So I will see you guys in the next build.
We're just brothers-in-laws, and Nerdhole's our name.
We're not like the others who get all of the fame. If your prop is in trouble, you can call us on the double. We're not mean trolls, so you'll be hooked on the Nerdholes.
Thanks, Nerdholes. The only thing you didn't phase was my bank account. For nerdy service, call or text Nerdholes prop makers today at 929-555-NERD or reach us on the World Wide Web at tnhprops.com.